think this might be a little bit loud. Sorry about that. Today is the 21st of March 2025, and I'm reading again Prelude to the Landing on Planet Earth. It is a book about a journey through the Middle East in 1977, and it is described by STUART HOLROYD, who took part in some of the channeling sessions, not all of them, but he listened to all the tapes. Walking on Eggs is this 8th chapter, and not sure if I will finish that today. Probably not, because it is a very long chapter. They've already started their journey. There was nothing obviously wrong with the wheels or tires of the car when they examined them the next morning, but John drove slowly and with great caution nevertheless. The three of them talked frankly about the previous night's communication and the understandings and feelings that they had got from it. And by the time they reached Jerusalem, they agreed that it had been a good thing because it had had the effect of bringing them closer together. In Jerusalem, they sought a place for their meditation near the Parliament buildings, but they could find nowhere very close, where they would not be conspicuous, and they had had to settle for the grounds of the university, about half a mile from the Knesset. Tom had said that they should get back to Galilee that day, so after the meditation they paid a brief visit to the old city to enable Phyllis to do some shopping. Then they set off to drive to Tiberias via Ramallah, Nablus and Beer-Shean. They bought a copy of an English language newspaper printed in Jerusalem, which carried the headline, "PLO plans attack on Syria," and wondered whether this had been anything to do with Tom's insisting that they return to Galilee. They arrived back at the Galei Kinnereth in time for dinner, and when a suitable time had elapsed after dinner, they held a brief communication. This day, the 23rd, was the day on which Dr. Kissinger had to concede the failure of his negotiations, and the following morning he flew back to Washington. He had been unable to persuade the Israelis to surrender territory in exchange for Egyptian promises, and he was returning. Tom said in great sadness, though with the failure of the talks, the danger of his assassination had passed. Over the next few days, the world's press was to be fairly unanimously critical of Israel's intransigence, and many commentators spoke of the likelihood of a reopening of hostilities. The following is how Tom analyzed the situation in the communication held on the night of the 23rd. The nation of Egypt sought to make the nation of Israel bend its knee, and when it could not, it began to lay a plot to involve the other nations. But Egypt did not, in truth, have in mind to bring the other nations to war. It was more in a way of using a threat, in wanting the nation of Israel to bow its knee. Egypt showed its ignorance, and when Israel would not concede the request of Egypt, the thought was planted that if it could be brought to the attention of the other nations that their God demanded this war, then they could force the knees of the nation of Israel to bend. But through their ignorance they have set up an explosive situation. It has now been picked up by the nation across from where you are. It is the only idea that could pull all the nations that oppose together. It was only done to bring the nation of Israel to its knees, and it was to be but a bluff, but it gathered strength. and it must be negated. There's a plot to launch an attack when the holidays of the Christians are over, and those of the nation of Israel are still in celebration. Israel, we give you our promise, will not be destroyed, but what is in the minds of those that oppose could cause the greatest devastation. And, Doctor, it is tragic, but your country will not intervene. For the next 2 weeks, the period that Tom had said when they were in Ossining would be the most critical. Andrija, John and Phyllis remained in Tiberias, ostensibly tourists, and followed Tom's instructions to stand in the Lake of Galilee and face the nation of Syria and pray from the heart for certain periods each day. You are in a very special place, Tom told them. This area where you now are is special because of the Nazarene. We have explained to you about the energy field that is Megiddo and the spokes that go out and the pockets of energy at the extensions. Well, this place is one of the extensions. In this area, the Nazarene performed many miracles. Remember who he was and who you are, and remember that he promised there would be those that would perform more and stronger miracles. The initio of the successors of the Nazarene was impeccable during this period. When they were not meditating, praying, or communicating with Tom, they looked and behaved exactly like tourists. John went water skiing on Lake Galilee with a hotel lifeguard, a 31-year-old Israeli, who, as an immigrant some years ago, had boldly adopted the double eponym Israel Carmel. Israel was intense, aggressive, athletic, and intelligent. He became a friend of the trio, accompanied them on sightseeing expeditions in the area, and introduced them to friends of his in Tiberias. The friendship was strengthened when one afternoon he joined them in their 3 o'clock meditation, as it were the most natural thing in the world, though of course they did not tell him the purpose of it. In your meditations today, Tom told them on the 25th of March 1975, you have not succeeded in averting the war threat, but you have achieved delay until 3 days after your 28th. And may we say to you that if you can prevent difficulties for the nation of Israel through the month of your July, then the nation of Israel will stand firm forever. Which was the second indication they had that they weren't going to be based back in Ossining as soon as they had thought. On the following day, the 26th of March, there was apparently danger once again of Israel embarking on a suicidal preemptive attack strategy. It is important for you, Tom told the trio, in your next meditations to pray and to love, and to give to those that are in authority in the nation of Israel the strength to be wise in their decisions. They feel that they are in a situation where they will have no choice but to be the aggressor. It must not happen. And we will tell you the truth of another situation. If it should come to pass that the people of this nation should ever come near the point of their total destruction, they will not only remain until they are no longer, but they will also take the rest of the planet Earth with them. They will release 9 missiles. It is important that it is not to be permitted. The children of the nation of Israel have in their hearts the knowledge of who they are. But with this knowledge, they are determined that before they will have to kiss the feet of others, they will eliminate all their people. They know that if the country of our doctor is not on their side, there is no hope for their existence. And they are prepared to take the planet with them. They have 9 missiles situated in 3 different areas, all pointed in direction to cause the greatest devastation. This was consistent with reports that appeared in the press shortly thereafter that Israel had achieved nuclear capability. Tension was maintained at a high pitch throughout the next 5 or 6 days, both by the information Tom conveyed and by the news emanating from the newspapers and from radio and television. The latter did not corroborate the former, for Tom's information had to do with events and decisions that would not be available to the media anyway. But suspense ran at a parallel pitch in the two sources of information. Among the Israelis there was a growing sense that their war was imminent and inevitable, and indeed many of them seemed to be spoiling for it. Communications with Tom over these days tended to be brief and to the point, for the opposition was apparently trying to use the opportunity to put its oar in, and there was a need for energy conservation in order to maximize the output for preventing an escalation of hostile posturing and plotting into open war. In addition to continually reassuring the trio that their energies augmented by that of the troops at Ossining was proving effective, and exhorting them to stand firm in their faith and not relax their efforts, Tom vouchsafed some political information. Since Kissinger's return to Washington, the US had decided to abandon Israel to her fate. In Syria, the government was in cahoots with the PLO, and a plot had been concocted to unite the Arab nations against Israel by engineering a political assassination which would look as if it had been done by Israelis. He wasn't named specifically, but there were hints that the intended victim of this plot was King Hussein of Jordan. All over Israel, including in Tiberias, there were Arab infiltrators, and they were being organized to strike simultaneously in order to throw the Israelis into disarray just before the main military offensive started. For the next 6 or 7 days, Tom said, on the 28th of March 75, we are walking on eggs. There was a situation of supreme crisis coming, which would demand of them a great concerted effort, and even if it were passed successfully, it would not mean the end of their work here, for the situation would remain serious until July. I'm putting in a break here, and hope you have a lovely Friday. It's the equinox.